and welcome to episode 400. Oh, that's actually a good question. 416 it is today. It's been a couple of weeks since my last show. This is the sort of thing that you might say at the beginning of an AA meeting, which I assure you this is not. This is Sonic Talk. We talk about music, tech, and all kinds of stuff. Yes, I've been on holidays, had a couple of weeks off, and as what often happens when you don't switch things on for a while and there's a change in the weather, you get a little technical glitches. So I've had a few issues today, but we've got a new guest and an old guest and a lot of fun to be had today. So let me say thank you also to our show sponsors, iZotope. If you want to hear more about what they're offering, stay tuned because we've got a competition coming up. We've also got the winners of the last competition where we have a person who won Trash2. So stay tuned and you will quite possibly be able to enter. Well, you will definitely be able to enter. If you've got time and you're not on Twitter, maybe you should get an account because it just requires a little bit of tweeting. That's all. Very, very simple stuff. Anyway, welcome one and all. I'm going to start with Rich Hilton over there in Connecticut. Rich, of course, is keyboard player with Chic and Nile Rodgers studio guy and breakfast bon vivant.
Denizen.
How are you, Rich? Are you well?
Good, thank you. Very well. And well fed in this case, thank you.
Excellent. I'm so pleased to have you on. We haven't had you on for a little while. I know you've been gallivanting all over the place, haven't you? You've been doing a lot of touring and gigs and what have you. How's that all been? Is that finished now?
It's finished for a few weeks, but it's been great. And we got to see 6 countries in 9 days.
Whoa. On the same continent?
Places. Yeah, generally, but some of it was Scandinavia. Most of it, actually, half of it was Scandinavia. But so it's kind of north of the continent. But yes, the same continent and wonderful, wonderful places that I'd never seen before and incredible audiences and really successful shows.
Excellent. That was, of course, Chic traveling disco circus, as I've heard you tell. So, but essentially, you were traveling in continent, if you get what I'm saying. That's. I just had to say that. It's a pun that just could not be avoided. I do beg your pardon.
In continent, I see. Yeah. Well, there was.
I'm sure there were no episodes of that nature in your travels.
You would needn't be that sure. I actually got sick in the middle of this tour.
Oh no.
I had one show where I had to play sitting down because it was just too much, and I couldn't sing because I was too distressed.
But the show must go on.
Absolutely.
Well done. Right, we seem to have a very mobile second guest who's joining us on mobile. We've had a few issues with bandwidth, but we now have Mr. Suit and Tie Guy of STG Sound Labs and, more importantly, Knobcon, which is coming up in September. He's there pictured in front of it. Is that one of your systems, or is that a Moog system?
No, this is what I built here.
Ah, yes.
And it's what I play. Yeah, I was walking around because I put the phone on this music stand because the laptop was not working too well. So
yeah, well, we've figured out that you've actually got better mobile bandwidth than you have wired bandwidth, which is just one of those kind of things. I get that at home too. Anyway, Sue, as we're going to formally call you now, of course, you make a lot of modular kit. I mean, we've reviewed a couple of your things. You've got some Eurorack utility stuff. I think we've got a Mankato filter actually in the queue for review. I know Ed's been very excited by that, so that's going to be coming soon. But more importantly, Knobcon is coming up in, just under a couple of weeks, isn't it? I'm going to switch to the web view, but you can tell me a little bit. Knobcon 4, the Raiders of the Lost Ark in your synth punnery arsenal. Who gets to decide the name?
Those are all my names. I haven't planned out quite a ways ahead. It's kind of exciting, actually.
Excellent. So it seems to have rapidly become kind of the. I mean, I call it a synth meet. I guess it's rather than a modular meet. There is a distinction, right?
Yeah, this is the world's only synthesizer convention. A convention is something that takes place at a convention center, and you've got exhibits and workshops and a reception and a banquet. And we have all those things, so this qualifies as a convention. This is not just a synth meet. And this is our 4th year. We've had a really, really good growth. Actually, like, I mean, I'm delighted with how it's going. The first year, we had about 100 people. The second year we had about 200 people. And the third year we had 300 people. And this year, I don't know how many people we'll have, but we've already sold twice as many room nights to the hotel as we did last year. So if that's any indicator, then I would say, I'm expecting a linear growth this year, but I could be wrong.
Oh, well,
up or down.
That's awesome. So, I guess there's a quite a tradition of conventions, aren't they? It's the like you say, the formula of you get a hotel, you rent it out, you use the function rooms, and you have like a banquet and stuff. What made you go for that kind of more traditional kind of approach?
Well, I thought it had to be done. I mean, someone's got to. Well, I mean, someone's got to say, let's kick this up. I got bored and frustrated with the smaller synth meets, and I said, this community needs a convention. It needs to be taken seriously. And I thought that Knobcon would be a good step in, solidifying, what, how strong and vibrant this community is, and also, allowing me to also, recognize some people too. Like last year, Herb Deutsch was our speaker.
Wow.
And it was the first year that I presented the Knobcon Lifetime Achievement Award for, excellence in synthesis, and it's a 500% scale 3D printed Moog knob that's painted gold. And I handed that to him, and it felt great, because I felt that not enough. There's no synthesizer award until the. I mean, there's like NAMM has a technology award, but this is about synthesizers and electronic instruments. This is a section of the music instrument industry.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like a subsection. One of the things that I do find really interesting, because I've been to a few synth meets, and they tend to take a kind of standard format. When you're saying, how many actual exhibitors are you getting? I mean, you're getting a lot of manufacturers. Are you getting enthusiasts coming with their rigs and just kind of setting up and showing what's what? How does that work?
Yeah. I mean, we literally have everyone. We have a variety of exhibits ranging from individuals who just have a cool old thing that they want to show off to people. Like last year, someone brought a movement drum computer. I never thought I'd see one of those in person, so that was exciting. And all the way up to this year, Roland and Yamaha are both sponsors. So I mean, you have everywhere from the smallest unit to the largest unit in the synthesizer industry is represented at Knobcon, which is exactly what I wanted to see.
I guess the thing is also now, because I mean, as we've been experiencing in the last few months or years, certainly, the whole Eurorack and analog synthesis market has just gone kind of crazy. Particularly now we've got Roland entering with the Iris stuff, and I'm sure there are other things coming along. But it feels like it's a pivotal time for synthesis again. I mean, you look, it's really interesting because you look in the guitar market, and it feels very sort of deflated compared to how it was, really only a few, fractions of a year ago. I mean, and there was a lot more kind of vibrancy and stuff around boutique pedals. That seems to have dropped away very quickly and been replaced by this kind of notion. Why do you think that is?
We've entered a truly postmodern era. I mean, this is a large discussion if you want to have it. I love talking about this. We're at a point in history where there's like art. I don't think there's anything new. There's no top 40. I mean, what is top 40 nowadays? I mean, everybody is still listening to baby boomer music. I mean, and I'm not complaining. I'm not saying this is bad. I think it's great. Everything's been done, so now we just have to do good stuff. And so what you're seeing in synthesizers growing the way they have over the past 10 years is just a flattening of the overall market, where for too long it was a little lopsided. Guitars were very, very popular with kids, but now they also like synthesizers. Guitars are never going to go away, but I like telling people, like, the synthesizer industry is finally where the guitar industry was in the 90s. And I think this is a great thing, and it makes me very happy.
That's an interesting
point.
And
I mean, if I offend anybody by saying that I think that art is now completely postmodern, like I'm not trying to be mean or discourage people from making art. I make art. But I mean, for the longest time, pop music was driven by what sounds new. What's a new sound? Well, new sounds are stupid. I like good sound.
I think that's a very valid point. I know, Rich, do you find, I mean, this, because it's really interesting, because in your world, you know, Nile Rodgers has been, you know, he's like the disco king, but guitar, you know, guitar is his thing. Do you think there's been a kind of hump in people wanting to play guitars again? Because, you know, you've got like an icon like Nile who's featuring in a lot of the, you know, front and center pop stuff. I mean, does he think that's countered the rise of synth to any degree?
Well, I think there's been a considerable rise in interest in people playing together live over the last at least 15 years, I would say. That was sort of heralded in by what's called the jam band movement, which is sort of a post-Grateful Dead based concept where people, and it brought playing back to the fore, where the previous 15 years or so had been dominated by drum machines, line input mixers, small Porta studios, and people basically sort of messing about on their own or in very small groups, but not generally in rooms full of people playing together, as had been the case prior to that. All of which, so yeah, the short answer to your question is yes. So that brings back guitar into the fold quite considerably, and there is a lot of interest, I think, right now in guitar playing. And I don't know what the numbers are, you know, in terms of sales and that sort of thing, but it does seem to me, I've been to a few festivals lately,
yeah,
both as a player and also as a guest, as a audience member, and I don't see any waning of interest in the guitar. That's for darn sure.
No, certainly in terms of live. I mean, that's quite interesting, because I mean, if you go back a couple of decades or perhaps before, you know, there was a whole range of virtuoso performers. You know, we had bass players, you know, it's probably started with Pastorius and then got into the kind of whole slap thing, you know, so those seem to be missing a little bit certainly in contemporary music so much now. I mean, do you think that might come back?
You've just held the door open for a nice little old guy rant. Preceding that dawning of the democratization of the music-making process, which included the appearance of drum machines and Porta studios and people having their own little rigs at home, and everybody with a mic pre is now an engineer, and all of that. In preceding that, we had a good half century of people practicing playing live together.
Right.
And the development of that was, and you might say it goes back more than half a century. You might say it goes back 3, 4, 5 centuries. You might say It goes back a millennia. But the point is, up to that point, pretty much the entire history of music performance was based around the idea that people were going to be either alone or together in a room playing music live. And that was all there was. And that's, you know, if you had the piano in town, people would come to your house and we'd all stand around and sing songs. And that's what music was. And when it stopped being just that, people got focused differently, and that process took a hit. And so when it started back up 10, 15, 20, you can argue the numbers, years later, it wasn't starting back up from where it left off. It had taken an inevitable step backwards because that progression, that momentum had been lost in the process of becoming extremely digital and analytical about everything. And I'm not making a value judgment about any of this. I'm not saying it was better before or it's better now or any of that. I'm just stating what I observe to have happened. So now you have a situation where people are sort of trying to regain the level, and now 15 years in, we're starting to get closer to what had been left off in, say, the mid to late 70s as far as live performance standard goes. Now, that said, there are tons of exceptions to what I'm saying. And there are plenty of good bands that have come along, and many of whom have become iconic and legendary. along that path anyway, aside from everything that I'm talking about. But in the broadest sense, this is how I see the evolution of live playing and why it's at where it's at now.
That's a really interesting point. Coming back to you, Sue, I'm going to bring it back into sort of the Knobcon world to a degree. Are you encouraging or creating an environment at Knobcon where people can kind of come and play together? I mean, are you generating master clocks and that kind of thing, like you see on some of the larger synthesizer?
Well, yeah. Actually, that's it's interesting that you asked that question, because I'm me being a musician and being a music lover, I wanted music to be a part of Knobcon. It started with the first 2 years. It was we had a reception on Friday. Knobcon is a 3-day event, so it was Friday through Sunday, and the reception is on Friday night. And we have it's a party. I don't like calling it a concert or performances. There are people playing music that I want to see play at this thing. It's my only party I get to book all year. So, and obviously I'm an egomaniac, so I play as well. I don't think I can be blamed for this.
No, I think that's perfectly acceptable.
Then, so when I added the banquet last year, I actually hired this married couple in their early 70s that they play at my favorite local restaurant, a steakhouse, and they play in the piano bar. But for the longest time, like Judy was an organist, and so I have an honest to God supper club organ trio, organ, guitar, drums, play during the banquet. And then after the banquet last year, Herb Deutsch, he played Mini Moog with them. It was amazing.
Oh wow!
He played St. Thomas, and then afterwards, the bunch, some of us were, there was kind of a jam afterwards.
Right.
That was very, fingers on keys and instruments jam,
Yeah.
As opposed to knob twiddling sort of thing. And so this year I wanted to foster that, kind of nurture that a little bit more, and also give people another option for after the banquet. So this year we're going to have a party called the Knobcon Big Room, which is upstairs in what is the lecture hall during the day. And we got Mark Verbose and Kodak and Oliver Dodd and Tyler Thompson are playing that. And that'll be like more dancey sort of stuff.
Right. Okay. So clock based
people
stuff.
Have a couple of different options. So I think that there's a wide variety of music represented during the entertainment portions of Knobcon. In fact, are you familiar with the Synth Freak? Those two girls from Austin, Texas. They're twins and they play keyboards together.
No, I don't know them.
Oh, they're wonderful. They're vision and hearing impaired a little bit. Actually a lot. They only hear over like a 4-octave range, and they make incredible music together. And I've brought them up every year since the second year. They're coming up this year, and they'll play after the banquet. I'm calling it the Players Club International, featuring the Synth Freak and friends.
Right. So it sounds like that's quite an important aspect. I think there is. What's the format for it though? How do people get to come to Knobcon? Do they buy tickets, and how does that kind of thing work out?
Well, we have a registration form at knobcon.com, and also at knobcon.com you will find links to the hotel registration page. It's all up in the upper right-hand corner of the web page, and you register online. It's very affordable. It's only $35 for a ticket. I'm trying to keep this as cheap as possible for people, so no one has an excuse not to come. Tables are $25 a piece. So, when I walk, Roland pays $25. They actually sponsored, so they didn't pay $25 a table. They paid a lot more than that. But if it doesn't matter what size company you are or how small you are. Everyone pays $25 a table.
Right. Gotcha.
And I don't police what you do with it. If you want to sell stuff at your table, that's fine. If you just want to let people play with stuff, that's fine. I'm trying to encourage people. Like I want it to be a little chaotic. So this is kind of exciting, having all these different layers happening all at the same time. And then we also have workshops or lectures or whatever you want to call them. We've got 4 per day. On Saturday, we've got a lecture about the. Have you ever heard of the Triadex Muse? It was It was a generative little. Okay. Well, there's a guy named Paul Geffen, and he wrote software to simulate the Triadex Muse about 10 years ago. And he's going to be delivering a talk about how to recreate, like his efforts in recreating the Triadex Muse in modern hardware. And then after that, again, John Sonnenberg is doing something about acoustic synthesis. He makes these resonating chambers out of like molded silicone, and he does crazy stuff with it. It's very exciting. And then we'll have a question. The name of the workshop is actually Gene Stop, Ask Me Anything. So Gene Stop, he rebuilt Keith Emerson's modular twice, and he's an extremely important part of Moog's new modular synthesizers.
Right. Sounds like there's a huge range of stuff. I fully suggest that if you're interested in going down, then people go to Knobcon, and there's presumably all of this stuff is scheduled, and people can see what they want to come to and all of that stuff, right?
Yes. And I should also mention another Sonic State alumnus, Mark Doty. Will be doing a 2-hour talk called The Wave Rights. I'm very excited
only
to see
2
him
hours.
develop his curriculum. Yeah, only 2 hours. Well, my first idea was just to give Mark a room to himself for both days, because I know he could fill it. He loves talking, and he's a great guest on the show and has a lot of very interesting things to say. It sounds like a lot of fun. Rich, I don't know if you're around at that time, because I'd love to get over there, but it's just sadly falls right at the beginning of the start of term and all of those kind of things. But it sounds like this, certainly if not this year, then next. It sounds like there could be a lot of fun to be had down there at the very least. Yes, it sounds very interesting. I think that the thing with these things, they do tend to gather their own momentum, and you do end up with a kind of a life of its own, and I think it's going to grow a lot. I think what we're going to do right now, I'm just going to bring in a message from our sponsors, and then we'll move on to another couple of topics and sort of dip in and out of the whole Knobcon thing as and when. So I want to say thank you very much to our sponsors. That's not them, this is them. iZotope. If I press the button, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It doesn't seem to want to work today. Right. There we go. It worked then. Let's try it. Yes. iZotope, of course. Then I'll tell you about Trash2, which allows you to distort your audio in ways you never dreamed of with the Trash module's 60+ distortion algorithms. It's perfect for distorting your sound, something you've never heard before. You can design your own unique distortions from massive to mild and everything in between with customizable multi-band wave shaper. Let your tracks inhabit any space or object with the new Convolve module. Choose from over 100 impulse responses, or load your own to put your bass in a washing machine or your synth keys in a cave. Find a new voice, make your audio speak and growl with 2 redesigned filter modules, each one featuring a new vowel formant filter, screaming peaks, node modulations and more. Start trashing your audio immediately with an extensive new preset library and an ear-friendly limiter that ensures you can play without fear, which is something we like, a little bit of fear, but we don't want real fear. Anyway, as ever, you can download a version of Trash2 to try out at iZotope.com/trash. So once again, we thank iZotope for their continued sponsorship of the show. And of course, we do have, as ever, we have a competition. We're just going to announce the winner from last time. This was a couple of weeks back because obviously we took a couple of breaks. We've got a guy called Le Beat, as in, but Le Beat spelled as in beetroot. So Le B-E-T Music. At LeBeat Music is your Twitter handle. And his tweet says, "What word did you say, Nick?" I think that might have been referring to something I might have said on air inadvertently when I thought my mic was muted, and I'm not going to repeat it
and I did manage to edit it out of the final versions. So you'll just have to imagine, just guess, think of a bad word, and it's probably that. Anyway, I want to say thank you to you. So LeBeat, do get in touch, and the iZotope Fairy will be able to bestow Trash2 upon you and into your account. So do go for it. And of course, we will run another competition this week, and the details of which are right here on screen. I will read them out in case you are listening to the audio version only. iZotope Trash2. You can win iZotope Trash2. You need to tweet the hashtag Ultimate Distortion, which is one word, and the hashtag Trash2, which is trash with a 2 on the end of it, to @SonicState and @iZotope Inc. And if you do that, you get put into the draw, and a random number generator picks the search results from the tweets that have that content, and then that's your winner. So don't forget, if you're listening on audio and you can't read this, the hashtag Ultimate Distortion, the hashtag Trash2, @SonicState and @iZotope Inc. And once again, we thank iZotope for their continued sponsor of the show. Very much appreciated. So the next thing, let me see what I've got here. I'm going to go, because you did mention an organ earlier, and there is a really, this thing, the Atlantic, it's the Atlantic City Auditorium, Boardwalk Auditorium organ, and it is an absolute monster of we posted a picture on Facebook, and it just went absolutely mental because there's a Facebook group called B3 Organ, I think, which and this just came up on it. It is, in fact, this thing is let me see, I've got some stats, facts and figures about it. It's built by the Mid-Meloche Organ Company. It's the largest, even now, the largest organ in the world, as measured by the number of pipes, which is officially 33,112. The exact number is actually unknown. It's also got the largest pipe organ ever constructed, the largest musical instrument ever constructed, and the loudest musical instrument ever constructed, and holds several records in the organ world. It's one of the only 2 organs to have an open 64-foot rank, which is absolutely massive. And it's got it's the only organ to have stops voiced on 100 inches of wind pressure, which means nothing to me. I must admit, I am not an organ aficionado, but that thing looks absolutely fantastic. And I know that in a local dance hall near us, there was a Wurlitzer in the corner that, you know, they quite often used in the UK. They used to come out of the floor and they'd be play along to either the music that was at the cinema or whatever. And I've never really seen one of these things. Rich, have you experienced the Atlantic City organ in person?
Not in person, but I've been aware of this thing for years. It's supposed to be magnificent.
Sounds like they achieved the kind of goal of a complete madman to sort of make just because he could. You know, it must have cost an absolute fortune. I don't know when it was built. Maybe the 60s or 70s, I guess.
I think it says here when it was built. But in any case, construction of the organ took place between May 1929 and December of 1932, which means it was constructed during the heart of the Depression here in the U.S.
Wow.
During which a lot of things were built. I mean, the Empire State Building went up around that same time, in I think less than a year or something. But anyway, this thing is basically the building. I mean, it is all over the building, and there are documentary films about it on YouTube that, if this interests you, I found incredibly interesting. That 64-foot pipe alone is worth the price of admission. And it's in an enormous hall, convention center.
Yeah,
it's you know, I'd like to go see it, and I'm seeing here on the wiki page that they hold occasional concerts, because I believe it's not really fully working, and it says here the instrument has not been fully functional since the 1944 Great Atlantic Hurricane. The 15 to 20% that has recently become operational has begun to be heard for the first time in many decades.
Wow.
So apparently you can go hear some little percentage of the thing, but it's an enormous repair project that apparently nobody wants to fund.
I can imagine. Now, Sue, you did mention something, because you sent in a video which was a recording of the organ as well, which I'll play a little bit of in a bit. But you said you've actually been to see it, right? Oh, that's the perfect time for a freeze right there. I'll tell you what I'll do then is I'll play the. Let me see if I've got the. No, that's not it. Oh no, this is it. Bach on the Biggest, which is a fantastic title for for any kind of record, I think. Let me just see if I can play this. There we go. I don't know how long that reverb is, or whether it's real. It sounds a little bit like it's...
Oh, I'm sure it's the hall.
Jesus, that is a big sound of mush to a degree. There was illusion in the note, but I mean, just in terms of the amount of sound, it must be. I mean, I guess that recording probably doesn't do it justice if you're actually in the room. So you were saying that you had been to that space, right?
Yeah. They had the when we went there, we couldn't go inside, but they did have the remote console parked in front. I think it's part of some fundraising or something that was going on. We also visited the John Wanamaker store in Philadelphia, which holds the original world's largest pipe organ, which is fully functional, and they do regular concerts on, and is, in my opinion, a little bit more interesting organ. Virgil Fox recorded on it, and it sounds fabulous. The Atlantic City Hall organ is very big. It's very loud, but a lot of it is based on like 8 and 4 foot like unison stops, and has everything about it is focused towards amplitude and amplitude,
Right.
and just the massive size of it. But the John Wanamaker store organ was actually designed for the 1904 World's Fair in St. Louis. And then John Wanamaker was opening this department store in Philadelphia, and he was at the World's Fair, and he's like, hey, I really like this organ. I think it would be great in my new department store. So he bought it and had it shipped out to Philadelphia on railroad cars. And then they got it installed in the building, and he said, I don't think this isn't big enough. Let's make it bigger. So they spent like 30 years increasing the size of the organ. And I think the Atlantic City organ was kind of motivated by a desire to one-up the Wanamaker organ, but I think in the end the Wanamaker organ wins because it's better maintained, it's in regular use, and like I said, Virgil Fox recorded on it, and that album is incredible. I can't remember. I think it's just called like Virgil Fox Plays the Wanamaker Organ or something like that. But he's got some really interesting arrangements on there, and he really tried to make use of the full tonal range of the Wanamaker organ. So I'm sorry. You wanted me? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's interesting. I mean, I haven't really experienced those kind of large scale organ. It sounds like in the States there's more of a thing. You know, it sounded like that was a bit of a thing, certainly during that period of people building these kind of giant organs just to sort of create a spectacle. And would that be true, Rich?
Well, I don't know about the spectacle aspect. Theater organ was later, but and they were built in conjunction with some of the bigger theater organs. But the actual history of pipe organ obviously goes back a lot further over in Europe, and than it does here because we just have a younger country. And people didn't get around to building pipe organs for the first, 100 years or so, or not that many of them, and not that big. But yes, there are some lovely little town spaces. You go into a local church and they have a nice little pipe organ in there that still works, and there's plenty of that around. But I don't know about the cultural aspect, about the trying to be biggest and all that other thing. People were building, for example, the Wanamaker organ was not built for a space the size of the Atlantic City Convention Center. So no doubt some of the design motivation for the organ in Atlantic City was based around the size of the space it was a fixed installation and it was intended to go into, whereas as Suit points out, the Wanamaker organ was designed for a World's Fair and then was transported to another space. I haven't heard them, so I have to take his word on.
Have you ever played a pipe organ? I mean, because there's quite a delay, isn't there? It's quite difficult to kind of get the. So I mean, it's okay, I guess, if you're playing to yourself, but if you're trying to play along with anybody, isn't that kind of an issue because of the delay?
Yes.
I'm guessing there must be quite a considerable delay on a 64-foot pipe.
Well, and the ambience you heard on that recording was probably somebody attempting to make a 2-microphone recording or a 1-microphone recording of that organ in that space, and it would be almost impossible to get the ratio right between the envelopment sound of the hall and the actual pipes themselves by doing it that way. As much as I'm a great proponent of stereo microphones and all that, you were probably hearing the real ambience of the hall.
Wow.
I can't believe somebody went back into a studio and said this thing needs more reverb.
Oh, it's entirely possible, I suppose. Sue, you also said that you'd played pipe organs. Have you played like very large ones in terms of, and what are the challenges with that?
I've only played a 2-manual pipe organ. I've played 3 manual electronic organs, but I'm not a classical organist. But I did for a couple weeks try a stint at being a church organist, and I actually had to quit because I was incompetent at it. But part of it was that the organ itself was almost as incompetent as I was, and the wind pressure was too low, and notes would like bend up into themselves, and like a note would go like, it was really irritating. But a pipe organ with proper wind pressure that's like properly maintained and everything can sound, I mean, the delay that people talk about with pipe organs is mainly one of the ambience, and also if there's like an antiphonal organ or the pipes are far away from the organist, there is absolutely a delay, but most of the delay that they talk about is reverberation delay, and it does affect you while you're playing. And a friend of mine's a church organist, and he plays with soloists and a choir a lot, and he basically has to, I don't know how he does it. He said he described like the mental process that he goes through to, keep himself in time with his own choir, and it just sounded ridiculous.
It's interesting.
I prefer Hammond, actually.
Yeah, I guess there's a more immediate and a more kind of visceral feel with that, because you can really sort of drive. I don't know if you remember, Rich, we did a thing, but it was a guy called Joseph Skrzek who was doing Moog and organ in various halls. I think he's a Polish kind of prog rock kind of guy. And there's some really beautiful kind of... really beautiful tones, and I just recall, because what you were saying there, Sue, about the bending of the notes, I noticed there were these things where it sort of sounded a bit like a bagpipe as I guess the pressure gets in and the reed begins. I mean, I have no idea how these things work, but I'm imagining, the people who can restore and keep these things together, they must be, a team of about 2 worldwide who know really what to do with this kind of stuff. No, really, is there?
There's a bunch of them. There's a bunch of them.
Ah, okay. Well, that's I guess the thing about mechanical stuff, that's the beauty of it, I suppose, isn't it? It's actually, I guess you must need massive pumps to keep that kind of air pressure up.
Yes.
Which is why you'd put
motors and pumps and, belt-driven devices. And yeah, it's a huge...
Children on bicycles.
There's a whole, starting up of the thing that's... You would really enjoy. I know the one about the Atlantic City organ is very interesting, and I'll bet you there are documentaries about the Wanamaker organ as well that are just as interesting. And I found them fascinating. It's a really interesting insight into what goes into these things.
Yeah, I would like to check that out, but I mean, just the size of that. I know there are so many show titles in this topic that and they're all slightly rude. So I'm just going to leave you with a picture of that. But I think 30 years to increase the size of an organ was a great quote, actually. But I'm not sure if I could use that. It might end up just going a little bit too far to the dark side. Let's have a look, see what else. Yeah. Did anyone see? This is really not about this particular movie, but it's about the genre, the whole notion of music movies. There's obviously this movie out at the moment, which is I'm gonna have to fast forward because we're just gonna get absolutely hammered on. Let's see if I can find the bit. This is the Zac Efron movie, which is We Are Your Friends, and it's as does tend to happen, every once in a while, you kind of there are movies made that try and get the zeitgeist of what's happening in the world of kind of teen culture. And I want to find it because there's this still in this movie where Zac plays, he's playing, and there's some really god-awful quotes about here we go. All you need is a laptop, some talent, and one track. Hold on, I'm going to keep moving forward because he's playing at a disco and he meets the beautiful lady, and then there's the party. Hold on, wait a sec. I'm going to fast forward. Here we go, because there is actually a still. This was quite unusual, obviously. Lots of babes in this one. Yeah, here we go. That wasn't the still I was looking for, funnily enough, Rich, but it'll do for the time being. Here it comes. Hold on, I'm trying to do this remotely over something else. There is a guy who sort of checks him out and says, "Oh, you are the guy." And there's a picture of him. Let's see if I can find it. This is me I'm having to describe this because I daren't play. Here we go. Here it comes. He's obviously the big record producer who's going, "You're the guy." And look at that. There's a Buchla sound easel right there on the desk. Which really kind of blew my mind a little bit. I just thought I'd put that in there. But yeah, this is the We Are Your Friends. It's the new Zac Efron movie, which is apparently historically tanked, kind of is one of the top 3 tanking movies of all time that was released in 2000 cinemas. But, that's not really the point. I mean, it wasn't really a kind of let's get at how badly wrong they got it. You have to praise youth culture to kind of bring it out into the cinema to a degree, to make it mainstream, which is obviously what they were attempting to do with this. But what I was thinking about is, there are periodically these kind of movies that come out that try and capture the zeitgeist. And I started thinking about this. I'm thinking, what, if any, do you think have actually successfully succeeded in doing that? Because there are, that have made it to mainstream. I mean, we have those kind of artist movies, which are certainly in the UK. There was Quadrophenia. There were various movies like that. And I think the Harder They Come is probably the biggest one, which is the Jimmy Cliff one, which... That's the only one I could think of that actually had critical acclaim, was actually a pretty good movie, but also did the thing because you get the Beatles, you get all of that stuff. But this is very specifically on a musical genre. I don't know. Can you? I'm wondering who to go to first. You're both sort of not catching my eye, so I'm guessing neither of you really want to comment on this. I don't know. I'm going to go to you, Rich, because you may have seen more of them in your illustrious career, or indeed worked on some.
Help me out. What am I commenting on now?
Sorry, was I waffling? I was waffling. Well, just. When it's done, have you ever seen it done successfully? When a movie like this is trying to capture the essence of like an entire musical genre or musical movement, if you like.
It's one of the reasons why I resist going to music movies entirely.
Really?
Yes, I don't. I've never seen Immortal Beloved. I've never seen the Ray Charles movie. I resist because inevitably I sit there screaming at the screen saying that's not how it went, and it's just, I just don't do. I know people love them. I thank our stars that we have them for those people, but no,
not for you.
None for me, thanks. I mean, if it's documentary, like if I could sit down with you and have a pint and watch the Woodstock movie and we could talk about what that might have been like, because I wasn't there, but in other words, when it's a documentary form, I saw, Pink Floyd play at the Pompeii thing, back in the day, whatever, in a quadraphonic movie theater. But when Hollywood gets hold of it, no, I'm not interested.
Yeah, no, that's a good point about documentary. I don't know. So over to you, Sue. Can you fly the flag? Can you successfully defend the indefensible?
Oh, yeah, I'll defend the indefensible. I love that. The first thing I would point out is, I guess I have 2 votes. These are the 2 movies that I think are the best music movies ever made, and one of them is called Fear of a Black Hat, and the other one is called Walk Hard.
Wow,
I think those are brilliant and genius. They capture everything that, Have you seen these movies yet?
I'm going for Fear of a Black Hat now. I'm a mockumentary chronicling the rise and fall of NWH, not particularly talented, bright. So kind of like Spinal Tap type of parody type thing.
It is a rewrite of Spinal Tap for 90s rap. It is brilliant. I mean, I've seen this movie 180 times, if not 300. I love it. I can rattle off lines from it all day long. And I accidentally find myself doing it in daily conversation. The other movie that I think really effectively, is Walk Hard, the Legend of Dewey Cox, or however, I think that was the subtitle. But it's about this. It's a parody of music movies as well, and it's a different kind of parody, and it's pretty amazing.
It's a Jim Morrison kind of look there. I don't know if that's what they were going for. I haven't seen either of them, actually. I'm going to have to check them out. Oh,
Yeah, those are my 2 votes.
Okay, well that's fair enough. I mean, I think I wonder. I mean, because obviously this is geared around the notion of the superstar DJ, and kind of being plucked. It's basically as far as I can understand it from the trailer, it's to do with a bunch of people who organise parties. One of the guys is a DJ. He gets famous. The rest of the gang don't. There's all of that kind of Disney good and bad, and then there you go, and it probably all works out well in the end. And he knows who his friends really are, that kind of thing. I'm totally guessing, but I think if it's Hollywood, it's very likely. Sorry. So,
yeah, oh no, I'm sorry. I was gonna have a third one. Is actually 24-hour party people.
Okay,
That's another really. But all these movies are comedies that I'm pointing out. All the serious music movies, I have no interest in them. Zero.
Right. Okay.
Just like Rich.
Rich,
but I have come up with a favorite since you started describing yours, and my favorite would have to be The Rabbit of Seville, Bugs Bunny.
Was that the one?
Piece?
Was that
the finest piece of film ever put to music put to film I've ever seen? And there's another one called What's Opera Doc that's damn close, but I think The Rabbit of Seville would go down as my favorite.
Is that the one where he's the pianist, or is it hold on,
no, there's that one too. No, The Rabbit of Seville is they do the opera The Barber of Seville with him as the barber, and Elmer is the
Elmer Fudd. Yes, there he is,
unwitting customer.
Excellent. Actually, that's a good call. Well, Cole Starling, who of course is one of the I mean, I recall when I first started out in music, my creative partner had a CD called the Carl Stalling Project, which is it's amazing, and it's basically a documentation of Carl Stalling and what they used to do playing to music. And honestly, there's a whole sequence. I don't know if you've not heard it, I'll just describe it for those who haven't. There's a whole series, because you hear they're playing these really articulated and kind of heavily orchestrated things along with a kind of some sort of action sequence, and they play, and you hear this kind of and he goes, no, again, and they do it again, and then and I cannot hear for the life of me the difference between the two things, but I'm guessing it must be in the sync, and they play it to the big screen in the old school style, and that is the real. I mean, that I guess that art is kind of dead to a degree, but
well, there are people doing live performances with orchestra of some of those things.
Wow, you must have to be a seriously talented player to be able to kind of join in one of those kind
challenging music to play. I've seen it live with an orchestra.
It's very Stravinsky, isn't it? A lot of it. A lot of
yeah, and we should also say there's another guy named Milt Franklin who was Stalling's orchestrator and then took over basically the reins when Stalling finished with Warner Brothers, and he also wrote some brilliant things. But Stalling was a genius, and I'll never tire of that stuff.
Yeah,
ever.
It's amazing. I don't know. We seem to have wandered off piece from music technology. No, it's entirely my own fault. And I make no apologies. Well, I am apologising, but I don't see why I should. And we've done the 20s organ and the cartoon music of the 30s and 40s. Anything else you care to add to that, Mr. Suit? Or should that be Mr. Tie Guy?
Good.
Yeah,
Mr. Tie Guy is good. I like that.
Mr. T.
No, I'm not Mr. T.
Okay.
I am a fan, but not. I follow him on Twitter.
Oh right,
He's
okay.
got a great.
So I haven't quizzed you about your massive backdrop of equipment back there. Is that an Eventide H3000 in the back there? I'm seeing a bit of digital action.
Let's see if I'm not sure if this red thing right here.
Not quite seeing that. Yeah, I'm seeing. Oh, that.
Yeah. Okay, that's an Archangel. That's a sequencer with a touch plate keyboard.
I think I've seen one of those.
I have it mounted. Yeah, well, this is a Detachment 3. This is designed with it's the engineer that I work with. His company name is Detachment 3, and I'm STG Sound Labs, and we do everything together. But this has his name on it,
right?
And it's standalone, and modular stuff has my name on it. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of Oberheim Echoplexes. I've got 6 of these.
Wow.
I love them. They're the best loopers ever made. And then this is a H3000. It's another one of my favorite things. It I've probably, one of the things I've probably listened to more than I probably ought to, are like Robert Fripp Soundscapes records, and his sound on those records is entirely about a GR300 guitar synth and an Eventide H3000 and a pair of stereo loopers. So
that's your setup right there.
That's why I have that. Oh yeah. No, it's great. It's great. I love this thing to death. I got a MIDI timepiece for clock distro and a bunch of lexicon stuff, and then over here, so this cabinet is the voice cabinet. It has oscillators and filters, envelope generators, and VCA and such. And then this cabinet right here is all sequencing. So this is a synthesizers.com 960 sequencer, and these are my sequencers. The Voltage Mini Store, there's 3 of them and 3 Trigger Mini Stores. And I generally, what I do is I use this Trigger Mini Store to control the rhythm of one of the voices on my modular. The other voice in the modular I control from this trigger sequencer, or from the switch right here. This is I make a ratcheting rhythm patch, like to simulate Tangerine Dream. We can talk about that later, but these are rhythmic generators right here. This Trigger Mini Store, though, I have this one permanently chained to the let's see if I have this permanently chained to the Juno 60 right here. Okay. Now this cabinet is called the Hot Mix 5, named in honor of those Chicago house DJs.
Right. So you got Electribe. Is that Electribe? Is that an MC202 type thing? And
no, we got a Electribe ESX 909, 808, and then a Zoxbox and the Juno 60.
Right.
And then actually I can spin this around. You can see this is my King Korg and my Kronos, and I can't turn it the other way.
That's okay. Wow, that's an impressive setup.
This is actually my live rig.
Right.
I actually
take all of that out on the road with you. Whoa.
Oh yeah. I've got a trailer, and everything's in cases.
Right.
And I play psytrance parties in the middle of cornfields, and they pay me like $5, but it's okay. I don't care. Like
it's that classic.
They pay me more than $5, but
yeah, I get your feet.
Like, I don't do it for the money.
Isn't it that old adage? Isn't it? What's it? I saw it's like a meme the other day. It's like a musician is someone who puts $5,000 worth of equipment into a $150 car, drives 500 miles and gets paid $150 or 50 or less. Yeah. It's that kind of, but yeah, that looks fantastic. Which does bring me to, it does bring us rather neatly to perhaps our closing topic, which is the Alchemy that has resurfaced. I don't know what you use. Do you use DAW environment, or you all out of the box and just record the final mix?
I used to use computer sequencing a lot. Are you familiar with numerology?
Yes, it's quite a
512.com numerology is it's a modular sequencer / audio unit host for the Macintosh, and it's been going since like 2000, I think 2002, I would say. Yeah, probably 2001 or 2000. Let's say 2001. Anyway, the first 3 years, the first 3 years of numerology, it was all like Jim Coker and me. And he is the programmer. It's his baby. It got to a certain point where I was not really relevant, and then I got into hardware. But all my sequencing stuff comes from my experience with developing numerology with Jim Coker. It's his baby, but it was a lot of the I got everything that I wanted to see in a MIDI sequencer in that program.
Right.
And then what happened was in like 2005 or 2006, my PowerBook G4 melted at a gig, And I said I was never going to gig with a computer ever again for the rest of my life.
That's a beautiful way for it to go, though. There's something poetic about that, I guess, in many ways. But what a way to go, melting at a gig. Well, perhaps, Rich...
Well, it was my own fault.
Okay. Just overheating. You were taxing it too hard.
Well, it's what I got for trying to use Native Instruments B4 instead of my actual Hammond organ at a gig.
Right.
I mean, it's a great program, but I can't do it. I have to have hardware.
Well, I think that's a good sentiment. If you could get it there and get it in and out and use it, that's fine. I know, Rich, this was the news, obviously, that Logic Pro 10.2 came out, and as we know, Alchemy was bought, or Camel Audio was bought by Apple, and we all wondered what was going to happen. And now here it is. It's actually back. It's now shown up in Logic, and it comes with the upgrade. I think they're bigging it up, and it's had an upgrade as well. So I think that Ben, I think it's Ben from Camel Audio, is probably working on it, and a bunch of other new features. Do you think this is Apple picking up the ball again and starting to kind of reintroduce? Well, obviously they are reintroducing. We've talked about Logic before. I mean, it's a hell of a lot of value for the money now with this in it, because that was originally a couple of $100, wasn't it, or over $100 just for Alchemy, I think.
I'm not familiar with what Alchemy used to sell for, but the Logic remains at $199, I think. I'm pretty sure. And they give you a ton of content, and the synthesizer seems like a really nice, welcome addition. I haven't used it other than to just listen to it, so I can't speak to the wonderfulness of Alchemy in particular, but I played one of their demo songs that has tons of alchemies in it, and it all sounded really cool to me, and I sort of get what they're pointing at least in those demos. It seems like a nice contender for Apple, and certainly a welcome upgrade, I would think, for anybody who's already using Logic, because the whole user interface seems to be nicer, and they got a nice skin on it now. I guess they had it in 10 as well, but looks nice, plays nice. Seems like a good deal for $200, and yeah, why not?
Yeah, I'm just looking at some of the other things that are coming. I don't know if you're a Logic user. I don't know if perhaps you're not.
A little bit.
You can now share directly to Apple Music Connect, which is obviously the new feature. The other thing that's quite interesting is you can share and backup files into Gobbler. They've kind of made that as a bullet point, which is quite an interesting development, because as we know, Gobbler's had a bit of a rocky road with the whole Avid thing. Force touch trackpad support, create your own track icons. I could spend hours doing that if I really could be bothered. Now independent hat links, blah blah blah. It's now possible to replace mode for audio recording, create new tracks with the same channel strip instead of a take folder. Time quantize. I'm just seeing if there's anything kind of new global key commands to set nudge. Yeah, some of the other things are kind of quite minor, but it's good to see that there's a response, because I mean, as we know, it tends to go a long way between. I mean, I do feel somewhat sorry for the Alchemy Windows users, because obviously, it was multi-platform, and that's kind of a bit of a drag, because they had maybe a lot invested in that. That's the problem with software, I guess. That's the thing that can happen, right?
Well, yes, and I see some people in the chat room talking about how it's devalued the Alchemy product to the former Alchemy base, and that is undoubtedly true, but there is a long history of that going on before this moment, although this moment is included in that long history, of people who worked their asses off to develop amazing software, ended up selling it to a major corporation who within a year is giving it away with part of a package, thus completely devaluing the thing for the people who actually spent their hard-earned money with the original developer.
Yeah.
That happens a lot.
I think Dave
could speak to that, I'm sure.
I'm sure he could, yeah. I think this does raise a more interesting issue, though. If you think about, all of these DAWs now are including all of these kind of exclusive instruments and plugins that work just for them. I mean, surely it would make sense. There comes a point where the value of the plugins and the instruments it's worth buying the software. If they made those available, if you buy them, they have to be authorized by a full install of the sequencer itself, but then they would become available in other sequencers as audio units or VSTs. That would make a lot of sense, because I mean, then you buy Logic just to get access to those things, maybe in a third-party sequencer, those kind of things. It would kind of make that would that be smart, or is that kind of that's far too democratic as a concept?
Well, I don't know. How did, pardon me, how did Apple implement Alchemy? Did they make it a plugin? And if I launch my Blue Cat Audio plugin host, will it come up?
I don't know about that
checked.
actually. I don't know. I don't think it happened because they're not audio units. They're native ones. I guess, Mr. Suit, you don't have the answer to that question either. But I'm going to fire over to you in case you do.
I don't have the answer to that question, but I can say that I do use the. I did. Soon after my laptop melted, and one of the other rules that I made for myself is that I don't use any plugins that didn't come with Digital Performer. I limit myself entirely to those plugins to make sure that my projects are forward compatible to future Suit and Tie Guy. I had some, all these DAWs have great plugins with them. I mean, the Digital Performers plugins aren't, I wouldn't try to make a case that they were better or worse than what comes with Logic. I mean, the ones that come with Logic are definitely like more powerful, like more feature laden, but I was able to use the drum sampler in Performer to do like a drum and bass breakbeat on one of my tracks with no problem whatsoever. I was able to do a mute group and pitch it up and down and pitch it up the way that I wanted to hear the slices. And so yeah, I mean, when I do use soft synths, I just use what's in the program or what came with the OS.
So are you using a DAW of some kind to record audio at all, or you just keeping away from that now totally?
No. I still love Performer. I still have to, I mix with Performer. I do my tracking either to I got a Studio Live 32 AI with their capture software, which is just bullet. It's amazing. I love it. And I just bought a Denon DN700R, which is a 1-rack unit SD recorder that even has network capability. You can record to 2 SD cards in unison, okay, for safety's sake. And it has an FTP server on it, and you can FTP right into the recorder. So when I'm going to replace my mixer. My mixer here. This is a Roland M480, which is one of the most amazing line mixers ever made. But I'm done with it. I need presets more than I need like direct knobs and whatnot. So I'm gonna replace this mixer with something. I'm actually going to try using a Motu AVB interface as a mixer, which I think is kind of risky, but I'm excited about it because the device presets in the new Motu interfaces are extremely useful. And with the extra room that I'm going to make, I'm going to throw that Denon in there. And then anytime I'm playing over here and I get something neat going on, I can just reach over, hit record. It's in hardware. I don't have to mess with the computer or anything. And then after I've recorded something, I can pull the SD card out and walk it over to my, sneaker net it, as they used to say, over to my Mac. Or I could have the Mac plugged in. I could have it on my network, and I can just suck it off the Denon and then load it into Performer and then normalize it and limit it.
I'm looking at a picture of the Denon. That's just a 2-track, right?
Yes, it's just 2-track. I actually, my music that I record that's improvisational. I just record a 2-track. I'm not interested in multi-track on that stuff. But I have multi-track. I fire up Performer and I do track by track and I run cables back and forth. But as far as my own music goes, and for what I do with the 2 tracks is enough. It's
funny you mentioning that FTP server. And correct me if I'm wrong, Rich. You might remember this. Was it the Mackie hard disk recorders? Or I think the Mackie ones where you had to put a drive in and you could FTP. They had network and you could FTP and pull it. It was very, very slow. It was like a 10 Ethernet. But I don't know if you recall that. We used to use them live for playing out with bands that I put on the road and did the pre-production for. But it was because you couldn't read the drives any other way. The best way to do it was pull it out over FTP, but it was a really slow FTP connection. But I don't recall now.
Somebody made a hard disk recorder, a portable hard disk recorder that had removable drives that you could supposedly read straight into your computer, via a drive connector of some form. I don't remember exactly how, but It didn't involve FTP.
No, I can't remember what it was. It's.
I don't know if it was Radar or it was Mackie. It was one of those people making a like 3 or 4 rack space 24 track.
I think Radar would probably make sense because they were pretty ahead of the game for quite a long time. In fact, lots of people, the guys from Portishead, they use Radar, and people still do, don't they? They use Radar systems as traditional tape because you can get that big kind of Otari type remote control and just kind of ping it in. And the A to Ds and the converters in them are supposed to be really special. I saw you nodding there, Suit. Did you recall?
Oh yeah, no, I was nodding that Otari that Portishead does indeed use Radar. They also will run their tracks out from the Radar through a Roland tape echo to color them and bring them back in. But the recorder that you're thinking of, I think, is the one I have in the other room that I don't use anymore, which is the Alesis HD24.
I think that was it. It just came up in the chat room as well. I want to say congratulations, Sonic4497. I think you just pipped Mr. Suit to that one, so nice work. I'm just looking at it. Yeah, this is the guy. That's right. I remember this. Yeah.
It was very the FTP on it, the Ethernet connector on it. The Ethernet interface is this 10 base T.
Wow, what's going on there? Help. Wow, I don't know what happened there. That was just some kind of random bit of playing. Well, anyway, yes, it was. It was like a 10 base T, wasn't it? And it was just ridiculously slow. If you're taking 16 tracks off it, it'd take you all night. But it's quicker to just use the ADAT ports and run it into. But I had the Fire port, which is you pull the drives out, you plug it into this caddy, and then you firewire it into the computer. It was FireWire 400, and Alesis' software was never finished. Yeah, I remember. And
there was an open source software that was developed too, even, and that worked better than what Alesis did. But the HD24 and the Andromeda were really the last Alesis products when they were trying to do like really high tech stuff.
Before in music.
And before I tell you, the HD24, I had the XR edition, which has the nicer mic, the nicer AD converters on it, and it's just it's sad because it's a fantastic machine, absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
But it's too much of a pain to move the tracks off, so I went with the Presonus solution instead.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I think it was Goldfrapp. We had a pair of them. And they went around the world, I don't know, 3 times or so, and they just did have a massive box of drives because it was so difficult to reorder the set. You had to pull. It was just kind of crazy, and that's all been sorted out now. I don't know what I think they use. Mainstay. I forget which, but
they were able to do amazing things with really slow hard drives at the time because they actually made their own. They made their own disk format. Those drives are not compatible with anything.
Yeah.
They basically write all of the tracks that. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's smart, isn't it? In many ways, not these days, because now you just most of these kind of
you don't need
just hang a drive off the back and USB and just there you go. I mean, there's a whole new generation of stuff now. Anyway, that was the now we brought things up to perhaps the turn of the century at least now. So we're talking about antiquated hardware. So anyway, I think this is probably a good time to start. We've been chatting for a while. It's now time for me to head off. But I want to say thank you everybody for joining us. Just quickly, Mr. Suit, if you just tell us one more plug for Knobcon. Not this weekend, next weekend, right?
That's right. September 11th to the 13th, Chicagoland, Illinois, specifically Itasca at the the Westin Chicago Northwest. So it's a nice hotel, and we got plenty of room for everybody. I'd love to see you out there. It's not too late, it's the world's only and greatest synthesizer convention.
Great tagline there. I like that. And we will I'm definitely going to get out there at some point. Thank you very much. But thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Sue. And also,
thank you,
Mr. Rich Hilton over there in sunny Connecticut. Well, I guess the sun is less of it around these days, just purely because we're officially here. Anyway, it's the last day of summer, which is kind of depressing. Or yesterday was. and it's been raining constantly. In fact, I'd just like to say thank you to my daughter. We've got a Velux window which opens like this in the roof, and she'd been hanging out of it and left it open, tilting into the room. When I went up to bed this last night, the carpet was like a swamp because it rained real hard. But anyway, she knows that. Didn't come through the ceiling, at least.
Oh,
Bless her. She's going to a new school tomorrow, so as are most UK school children, back to school. So it's the end of the summer holidays. But anyway, Rich, thank you for joining us. I'm rambling again.
thank you, and good luck to your daughter at school.
I'm sure she will not need it, but I know she's looking forward to it very much. Right. So that's it for this week. I want to say thank you again to our sponsors, iZotope. Just a quick recap there. If you want to enter the competition, you need to tweet out the hashtag Ultimate Distortion and hashtag Trash2 to @SonicState and @iZotope Inc. And that will enter you into the competition. And you can add some other stuff in there. We've got 140 characters. Go crazy. Well, not crazy, but, go creative or something. So that's it. Thank you very much for watching. I think what I might try and do is because there's this beautiful piece of music, which I might try and play out. This was the organ piece that I mentioned of Joseph Skrychek, which I absolutely adore. And I think it's just got a really quite a special sound to it. Let's see if this is the right. Yeah, that sounds like it. I'll play this out a little bit and let's see if I make that bigger. You can probably... Oh, no, I don't want to make it that big. Hold on. Technical malfunction here. You can hear the notes bending. And there's the Moog solo that comes in a set. I'll just put this up. I really, this piece still does something for me, but it's just the power of the organ. And if you get the chance, get over to Atlantic City and maybe check that out. Okay.